Welcome back to Master Agent Mindset. Today our guest is Mr. Dan French, a local yokel and definitely a mind to contend with. A licensed loan officer, licensed realtor, and all-around Renaissance man.
What's going on, man?
Nothing, brother. How you doing?
I'm great. Doing real good, yeah. Appreciate you having me come on and talk a little bit here. What's going on with you? How you been?
You know what? I can't complain. It's been a journey.
Yeah.
It's been fun. So let me ask you a question. What brings you here to Master?
Well, I'm trying to learn from the master, from you. I mean, yeah. My thing is, you always seek people that have done better or more or have been down that path. That a lot of people, what they don't do is they don't listen to people and they figure it out the hard way. And so what I always try to do is try to look at people and see, what are they doing different that's better than me? And then what are their habits, right? What do they do on a daily basis? How do they separate themselves from just the average out there? That we're not even talking about just real estate agents or lenders. We're going to just talk about people in life, right? Whatever your goal is or whatever you want to obtain in life, what are your habits on a daily basis? People always talk about, Tom Brady, people like them, where they excel at a very high level. I think it's with the weekly process that you put in to get the result of the reward. All you see is that, the result, but you don't know what works, the grind. So as a real estate agent, as a lender, somebody in sales, I think everybody's always trying to pick each other's brains. So I'm kind of here to ask you some questions about what you've done and why you've been so successful, especially working here at Berkshire Hathaway. And let's kind of talk a little bit about your successes and where you came from and how you got here.
Yeah, well, hey, I appreciate you, talking about that. And here we go. The main thing that I've done in my life is I've looked out for mentors, especially when I've hit rock bottom. And I've hit that rock bottom more times than I care to mention.
Yeah.
When I find myself in a changing market, like in 2008, 9, 10, I sought out aggressively what other agents were doing so I could try to mimic them and stay in the business. Back then, so many people left the business on both sides, lending and real estate. It was ridiculous. It was really hard to make a living. And so what I did was I searched out a method that other agents were doing. I didn't get into the basically the REO business where you were accepted by a bank to get the listings and all that. I kind of wish that I would have done that, but unfortunately, I didn't get on that wave. I was too late. I was actually doing loan modifications. I had a license to do so.
Okay.
And was doing decent until the FTC decided that there wouldn't be any upfront fees. And so I decided to cut bait because I needed to make a payroll. And with that type of business, I just couldn't do it. So then I found myself with, again, what do I do now? Because in real estate, nothing was really selling. The housing was going down so fast that I couldn't close people so that they would, in turn, pull out as much enough equity, be able to pay us. So what I did was I started doing short sales on a very high level, and I learned from some of the best on that whole genre. But I wasn't satisfied because of the commissions that were being made. They just took too long, so I had to figure out another way. To make a long story short, I ended up meeting Mike Ferry through a network of people. And not on a personal level, I don't want to act like I know the guy, because I don't. I went to mastermind retreats, did a little coaching, but I read his book. I listened to his tapes, CDs, whatever, until they were just run dry. And I just copied his advice. And I started making phone calls. To make a long story short, it took me a long time before I could even get my first listing. It was now 2012-13. I had made enough money to stay in the business during all that turmoil of 9, 10, 11, 12. And I made a brokerage change, to make a long story short on that. And then I started making my calls. And that's what started to make the difference.
The calls.
The calls. So what I had always done is, before then, I would be a agent that would rely on marketing. And back in the late 90s, all the way through the early 2000s, I was on television, radio, making decent money, paying out a lot in marketing. But then all of a sudden, I was caught because I had to pay so many bills that the commissions that did come in at the very end were enough to be able to pay those final bills and employees, but not enough to be able to sustain a business. You couldn't pay a $10,000 a month marketing bill when you were making $5,000 over 2 to 3 deals. You just couldn't. And so what I just decided at that point was, I'm going to figure out a way to stay in this business, and even though I may have to start from the beginning. So anyways, I went to this retreat, the ones that they're held here in Vegas, and I was glued to every word that Mike Ferry said. And I took copious notes and started making my calls. Well, like I say, 3 months later, in making my calls, I had still not gotten one listing. And I
have a question on that. So why are you after listings? Like, what was the reason for listings? Because if you're in real estate, I'm assuming you're trying to get any opportunity. If somebody's just throwing you a bone, right, you got to take it. Was listings what he said?
Well, what he said in a very abbreviated, way was, if you control the inventory, then your probability of closing goes up on a very exponential level. So what he would say is that if you spend the time that you have in a day calling expireds, calling your your past clients, jumping on every lead that you had that was a possibility of getting a listing, he says that what would happen is your closing ratio would go higher, and then what would happen, your basically ability to stay in the business would grow as well. In that time, you got to understand, there was a lot of opportunities for buyers to buy on the cheap. And so they were unfaithful.
Yeah.
To say the least.
I think buyers in general are unfaithful. There's so many real estate agents. Look, you're a very likable person. I think you're very trustworthy, and I'm not just saying that because we're talking here. I just know agents, and there's agents that I wouldn't do business with, and there's a lot. I would say there's more I wouldn't do business with than there is that I would trust and do business with. And I think that's the mindset is people think realtors are just out there and they're in abundance and one's on every corner, but not a good one is on every corner that has your best interest, right? And I think is that what really separates, an average real estate agent or a typical real estate agent versus the better agent?
Well, I think you're hitting it on the head. Not every agent has the same skills. But what I tell everybody, and there's a plethora of very educated, moral, good real estate agents out there, but because they're not willing to pay the price to get the listings, then what ends up happening, they leave the business or they teach the business, all right? So in this case, I don't want to be a broker. I don't want to be a sales manager. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be any of those things. Love those people, need those people, no disrespect. But what I want to do is help agents first keep their mindset to where it needs to be. Okay, and where it needs to be on a level where they're constantly looking for business in a very proactive way.
Sure.
And they're digging where the veins of gold are.
Sure.
Now, what I'm about ready to say isn't for every single agent. However, there's nuggets for everybody. All right. So what I found is after the third month, going into the fourth month, I started taking a lot of listings. Okay. Now, I will say this in parentheses. I am not the most producing listing agent on the planet. Not that person. I am a great coach. I show people what I do, and I've watched people do some amazing things that I've personally taught. Okay? One of the reasons why I'm opening up the shows for that. And I think if you look on some of the greatest coaches, Matting and the bunch, they weren't necessarily the best athletes on, when they played or if they played. My goal isn't to make myself, this show isn't about me. This show is about helping agents get themselves to a position where they can make consistent business. This isn't for the guy, gal that has, 50 deals in the pipe. The Zillow agent that has 250 listings because they represent them. I'm not talking to those guys, gals. Who I'm talking to is the people that are on the front lines. They're sitting there.
Yeah.
They're trying to make things happen. That's what I'm talking.
Can you actually make it where you can luck your way to getting those? Like, obviously, you can create a team and you can get a bunch of listings, right? Everybody knows, I'm going to get agents. That's what people do. I'm not going to put names out, but we know a lot of agents. They go out and they recruit because they want to put a bunch of transactions under their name, or at least have listings under their brokerage. But maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't have that recipe of success, and maybe they're just doing it based off of running a business, or maybe it's just not their character. And I always come back to this. Do you feel that your character with this Mike Ferry, that you always had it in you, but at one point somebody had to bring it out of you? Like, were you always that person, or did Mike Ferry just, you said, you know what, I had to hit rock bottom to do that because that wasn't me before? Either way, you're still there, but something had to switch if you're not that character of a person to do that.
That's a great way of explaining a major dilemma in the business, all right? And the way I explain that, and here's the dilemma. The dilemma is, is it because of how you're built? Is it because who you were that you're able to make the calls and convert those and to do a good amount of business? The answer to that question is really simple. And I have to call it the way it is. I've done it on one show before. I'll do it again. I call it Ratatouille. All right. Have you ever watched Ratatouille?
No.
It's a Disney flick, and it's funnier than whatever. It's a great flick.
Ratatouille.
And the guy, the maid chef that was, basically said, anyone can cook, right? And it's, if you have kids, you kind of get that metaphor. But
sure.
The bottom line is anyone can cook. When you start off, as another example, in karate, for example, all my kids are in karate. It's a great thing.
Good.
Right? When they start at a white belt, man, they know nothing, right? But when they're going up the ladder, they're hitting their purple belt to a black belt to a brown belt, or brown, black, whatever. At the end, what ends up happening is they're now masters. But yet, was it in them before they started? The answer to that question is no. So Mike Ferry and their organization has my respect. But it wasn't me before Mike Ferry and his teachings. It's me as a person seeing teachings, in this case Mike Ferry's teachings, seeing that they make sense but at a heavy cost, and then deciding that I was going to pay the cost. And some people will say, listen to me on the phone, they'll say, dude, you're just gifted. You're just, you're the man. Oh my gosh, I've never heard a guy like you. Blah, blah. I've heard it all. And I'm going to give you a story that best illustrates my point, okay? So I had just done a 4-hour stint in prospecting from 9 o'clock to 12:30, whatever it was. And I went to my desk to eat for 20 minutes, and then I was going to go back up, right? So I'm sitting there eating, and this gal comes into my office. She's relatively new, maybe a couple years in the business, and she's struggling. And this happens all the time. And so she sat in front of me, invited, because I waved her in. And so I'm eating and talking. And she's like, I think, in short, basically what she says is, Pedro, I think you're full of shit, is basically what how she came across. So
wow.
I normally expected someone to kiss my butt and try to get information, right? That's the normal. But this gal was basically calling me on the carpet that I was basically somehow making it up. I would ring the bell in the bullpen, and she didn't believe that I was actually getting what I was getting. So I looked at her, and I was a little pissed, but I didn't let it show. So I said, okay. I said, I want you to do me a favor. And I picked up a list. And back then, I didn't have a dialer. I was calling basically off the expired list. I said, I want you to pick a page. She goes, what do you mean? I said, see this? It's about this thick. Yeah, pick a page. She picked a page. So I opened the page. I got my cell phone, put on my headset. It was just a headset, normal one with just a little headset here. I could hear on the other side. And I said, okay. I started dialing. I said, don't go anywhere. Started dialing. No answer, no answer, no answer. Answer. And this is a true story. I started talking to the lady. She says, oh, don't bother. And I said, well, do you have an appointment with someone to go list your house now? She says, yes. What happened was he listed my house. It didn't sell. So I have an appointment for him tomorrow to come and pretty much list my house again. And I looked at her and I winked to the gal that was in front of me. And, and I used a line. And here it is. I said, ma'am, do you know the definition of insanity? And she says, no. I said, it's doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. I said, this guy didn't sell it, right? Well, he didn't. Well, then he probably won't sell it. Now, let me ask you, do you want to go through that again? Mm-hmm. She says, no. I said, well, let me ask you, if I can go today at your convenience, show you what I do to sell houses, would you at least give me the opportunity? Yes, I would. I said, great. When can I be there? She says, I'm open after 3. And mind you, it was about 12:30. I said, great. That gives me time to finish up my calls, ma'am, write up the paperwork so you can look at it, and I'll be there at 3 o'clock. Great, great. Hung up. Looked at her right in her eye. I said, did I make that up? And she was like, I can't believe you. You're amazing. I had a convert at the spot. I mean, this girl thought.
It was done at that point.
She was
sold.
She could not believe it. So she left. I went back to the bullpen and started calling again. Same old, same old. I rang the bell, kept calling. Showed up at 3 o'clock, sat with a lady, very nice lady. It turned out she needed to go into a retirement home. Mm. She needed the money, and she needed it a certain amount of time because she had to pay the deposit.
I see.
Okay. So I told her what I did. Make a long story short, she signed. I took the listing back, took the listing, called the agent that was supposed to go the next day because I told her I'd do that as a courtesy, and says, sir, you have an appointment at da-da-da. He goes, yeah. I said, you can cancel that. I've already taken the listing. Oh, it's already started on the MLS. Have a wonderful day. Well, how'd you get it? I said, well, I just called it expired, sir. Have a great day. And hung up. All right? So what did that story, and why am I telling it now, but what did that story teach this 2-year rook?
I think it teaches somebody at that level that you have, first off, you have to have the withal to actually put the effort in. I think that's number one. But 2 is if you follow a process and the process is consistent, this is what I get from it, and you have some type of structure on how that process goes, then you're going to get the result or get a result. And I think that's kind of where when somebody's like, oh, well, you're BS. I don't know. To me, it's like this. Usually people that say that are usually people that are not doing much. It's always the people that are doing things that want to know more about what you're doing, right? You made a comment. People seek out other people, or they always come to you for questions. If you didn't show or produce, do you think anybody's going to come and even talk to you? Probably not, right? So I think it comes down to that you're always going to have those outliers, but I think from her perspective is she couldn't believe that having that type of system or that structure. This is my opinion. And it was that easy because it was easy because you just followed a script or followed a process of what you do. It's not rocket science, yet you do have to still be you have to have self-leadership, I think, in this business. I think it's a big deal. So I think that's what I got from it, from what you're saying. And basically, I wouldn't say you proved her wrong, but it makes her now think differently about the situation. This is what I think. As far as does it work or does it not? Obviously, she's probably thinking, you know what? This guy knows what he's doing.
And you know what? I can't add anything to what you just said. I agree with everything you said. I will just tell you about some of the outcomes. Number one, you would think that after she experienced that she would go on to start calling, right? Mm-hmm. And basically stand next to me in the bullpen and continue, right? Well, no, that didn't happen. What happened was 5 years later, right, she still was working with her people, with her sphere of influence. Husband was working somewhere and she would get the leads.
Sure.
She never, ever prospected, even though she had a wonderful experience. I will tell you a funny story. She comes to me about a month later and she says, shouldn't you pay me a referral fee? And I'm like, for what?
Why?
Well, she says, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have made the call at that time and got that appointment. I said, yeah. Well, then, yeah, I will just send you a bill for the coaching fee then.
Wow.
For that same amount of money for teaching
Isn't
you
that
what
amazing
I do.
how somebody would bring that up? Where they're saying, can you look, that's pretty, I don't know, man, that's pretty arrogant, and I think I'm not going to say that all agents are terrible. I'm just saying, man, we're not doctors here. We're not solving world problems here. Yet I feel there's a sense of entitlement. Not saying that you're not entitled to money, but it's like ego and a sense of over-entitlement in a lot of ways where you're not, again, I come down to it. It's not to discredit real estate agents. We're doing a great thing. There's a lot of things that you have to know about real estate. But I just feel that the way that a lot of agents are presented, it's a lot of money. You can make a lot of money if you're good at sales and you're good at understanding your craft. But again, you're not changing. I mean, I guess you could say you're changing lives, but I don't know, man. It's just because people buy homes all day, every day. People also lose homes, unfortunately. Things happen. I think the stigma that a real estate agent comes up with is that they're not providing. I don't feel like they're providing something that others can't do. Like, for instance, if you're unique at something, you get paid very well, right? Let's say you're unique in I mean, we always talk about sports, or let's say cryptocurrency, whatever it is, and you're good at it. Like, you understand numbers, you understand how the process works. If you're unique at something, then people always pay attention, and I think that's when you get paid. But I think with real estate agents, they're not that. There's not a lot of uniqueness within real estate agents. Once you understand the process, if you go ask 10 or 15, you have to have a certain process of how you get it. But for the most part, I think most of these agents follow the same script, right? It's not like they're reinventing the wheel here. They may throw something in like, we'll list your home for 1%, or, our objective is to try to get some type of sales thing, where whatever it is. I mean, there's always these little loopholes that they try to do. But for the most part, there is no secret sauce. It's you put the hard work in, you find out what process works for you and your team, and then typically it works. I don't know. Maybe I got off a little topic on that, but just
No. I mean, you did great, man. And look, that's going back to that. So I think the reason I got the listing was because I knew what to say. So the lady didn't tell me her why at the moment. Mm-hmm. But what she did do was gently expressed her urgency, and I just met it with a simple request. What do you got to lose if I just show up and tell you what I do? So it puts her in a situation that it didn't compromise her, let's say, allegiance to this other agent, but she did want to see what someone else would do. And that was the secret sauce, is knowing what to say. So for example, Mike Ferry, when I was watching all that was going on, he was amazing, right? But he cut through the malaise of what was my worldview as a real estate agent at the time. And I thought the only way to get business was to pay for it, right?
That's what a lot of people think.
Yeah. And so, and I did, and I made a lot of money, okay? But I spent a lot of money. And when times got hard, I couldn't spend the money, and then I didn't have any money because I thought the only way to get it was to spend money. So I put myself in a box, man, and I was like, I'm never doing that again. I got to find another way. So what Mike Ferry teaches is you don't need anybody. First, he recommends you don't have a team. They're just a big pain in the butt. You're babysitting all the time, all right? My team, I have a team, but my team usually is a team of 2. Now, I'm thinking of expanding that a little bit, but it's not for the business per se as much as it is for the coaching side of my personality, which is what I like to do, to help people. You know the adage, give a man a fish, and he eats for a day. Teach the man how to fish, and he eats for a lifetime. Man, that resonates with me. I love that. And if I can make a living at it, great. But right now, a little bit larger team, I make a little bit of money on that, and it's not a ton, great. But going back, knowing what to say in that scenario was why I got the listing. But I did not know what to say if I didn't meet and go through the program with Mike Ferry. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So anyone could have called her, and probably a lot did. And I resonated because I was able to come up with a script that wasn't written by me that would cut through all that stuff and get to her giving me that appointment. Now, that being said, and that's what I told this gal. I was like, look, here are the scripts. This is what to say. Come, we can practice it. We can do this. You can sit next to me or stand next to me, make the phone calls. Never saw her again, never in the bullpen. She would never went there, and she never made a phone call.
Yeah.
Well, let me give you another story, if you don't mind. I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
Okay. So me and my best brother, I call him my bro because I love that guy. He's no longer with us. He was one of the greatest guys I ever met. Guy was a cop, just awesome guy. Okay? So him and I have that relationship that you've seen a bunch of guys that were both like alpha type personalities, very strong personalities. And so we're always kind of battling, arguing at the time, right? So, but we loved each other. We're boys, the whole bit. We weren't Brokeback Mountain, by the way.
Right?
Thinking that wasn't us. So we're in a guided tour, and we're going up. And the guide, the senior guide, gave us with this new guy, right? He didn't know us, the main guy. We had already hunted with him a couple times. So we're going up the mountain. We're elk hunting. And we're going up the mountain. And him and I are just going back and forth. He's going, hey, fat ass, hurry up. You're falling behind. And I'm like, all right, well, you're the rabbit, I'm the turtle, you're going to get tired, I'm going to pass you, right?
Right.
So we're going up. So one of the cardinal rules when you're hunting is don't make any noise.
Right.
Well, him and I were going that route. About halfway up the mountain, the guy turns around, and he says, you guys need to keep it down. And now he's probably about 3 to 5 years less than us in age. And we just looked at him. We're like, look, man, you put us on the elk. We'll worry about getting it. And don't worry about us talking. And he's fuming. But he's going up the mountain. So I'm still about half a block away from him,
Sure.
at that, because they started pulling. The guy was a little mad. So my boys kept up with him, but I was kind of behind. So they sit down and they start eating something. And then I finally show up. And so, my boy, he starts in on me. Oh, yeah, you're carrying that burrito that you ate. And he's just jumping on me, And I'm like, look, man, I'm going up the mountain. So I start walking up. So I turn around and I gave one more jab. I said something. He starts to laugh, and then this guy's pissed. So he gets up, gets his pack, and he starts going up the mountain. And he gets up next to me, and my boy kept up. And he goes, "You two are not going to catch shit. This is an absolute waste of time. You know what? You two MFs are the worst." And I stopped him because you don't talk to me like that.
No.
And I said, number one, you don't talk to me like that. Number two, we're going to get something, and your ass is going to carry it down by yourself. We're not going to help you. You understand? We were going to help you, but now we're not going to help you. He goes, if you get it by some miracle, I will carry it down, no problem. So we get up the mountain. We both post. He posts us in this area, and I grab my sandwich and I literally put it in my mouth, and I heard a boom, and I'm like, what? Put my sandwich down and ran over there, ran back to get my rifle because I forgot, ran back over there. I'm like, what happened? And my friend is standing there over this 5x6 huge elk.
Wow.
And I put my gun down, and this guy, his eyes, he's in some world. I guess that was one of his first elk or whatever as a guide. And I look at him and I go, "You have something to say?" And he goes, "No." I said, "You're going to carry this shit by yourself all the way down." And me and my friend, he fell laughing. I fell laughing.
That's funny,
It was
man.
one of the greatest stuff. We helped him carry that stuff, by the way. But it was a great story. Now, why did I tell that story? Here's why. I and my friend paid for a trip. We got a guide, right? But neither I or my friend knew, and for the most part, this guide didn't either. This sub, guide, because the master guide was doing something else, preparing the next day's camp, which was way on top of the mountain, and we didn't know where the elk were. We had no idea. But what did we do? We came prepared. We had our rifles. We had our ammunitions. We had our backpack. We had our camo on. We had everything. Yeah, we were blowing it by talking, a little bit, I guess, as we're going up. But we had a guide. We had it all.
Right.
Now, what the problem is with a lot of people is they want to go hunting, in other words, looking for business, without all that. They're not dressed properly. They don't know what to say. In other words, they don't have the ammo, right? They show up to the listing just to to impress them with either their past history or as their buddy, right? If they even get the opportunity, right? So what I am telling you is there is a method to the madness to get the listings, and once you have the listings, then what you have is control of a segment of the market. And I'll never forget that one day I'm messing with the MLS, right? And I'd already been prospecting for about a year and a half, 2 years, And I was getting up there like fifth in the office. Right? I get all these recognitions, Everybody would always congratulate me. I didn't know why, They would always say something because I guess in the office meeting that I, at that time, very rarely went to, they were always talking about me or they were doing this and doing that. I won this award, won that, whatever. So the bottom line was, at the end of all this, okay, where I was going, is Dan, none of that shit mattered. None of the accolades mattered. None of it mattered. And as I'm looking through the MLS and I hit the map on my own listings, which I don't know how I even did it because I wasn't even trying to do. I guess I hit my personal production. I was looking for something. I hit the map, and I saw mushroomed there all these little dots that represented what all my listings, not just current, but closed in the last 12 to 24 months, whatever it was. And I took a step back, and I went, oh, my gosh, that is freaking cool.
Like it was like something you didn't think about it. Like
No.
It
was
crazy.
amazing to see all these properties that I had helped, all these different people from different backgrounds that I helped. And I had to sit at my desk and thank God, really, because he helped me, and it was amazing. And if it wasn't for the guide, in this case, Mike Ferry, right, in his great organization, if it wasn't for his scripts, if it wasn't for his dogged determination to, spread his message to a bunch of agents, then I wouldn't have probably stayed in real estate. Okay, I probably would have left. It wouldn't have been able to sustain the kind of lifestyle that I wanted to live and have. So what I'm saying is, when you go after a segment of the business and you just focus on listings, you will get the listings if you follow a program or a coach, right? What happens is, when you come into this business, it's way easier to start showing people and doing buyers. And as we already discussed, buyers are very unloyal. Yeah, they can sign a buyer's broker agreement, right?
They're unloyal, though.
Yeah.
They are.
But for the most part, answer this. I'm going to give you back this thing. Answer this question.
Sure.
Okay. Let me get you right there. All right. What's been your experience with buyers that go jump on Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin? Are they worried about your feed? Are you sending them property? Or is it that they think now they're the experts, they're finding the property? What's been your experience?
I think it's been they think they're the expert. I think they feel that, not saying that you don't need a realtor, but when you go through the buying process, I think a lot of people think that they figured it out. And then if you, like as a real estate agent, unfortunately, you can be replaced really easy on the buying side. What people can't replace, I think a lot, when you kind of hit on the head, is that if you're listing somebody's property, what are you doing different? I'm not saying that all buyers will jump ship. I'm just saying, as a buyer agent or representing a buyer and being a buyer agent or realtor for that person, my experience is that they don't give you the same loyalty. They don't give you the same trust, the same loyalty. They trust you, but there's always a constant, hey, you know what, I saw this or I saw that. What that tells me is when people constantly ask you questions or ask advice or ask certain things, where I wouldn't say they're saying, hey, what do you think about it? It's these I see properties are going down in price. How come we haven't talked about that? Or rates have gone up, why are we not talking? It's not, I guess it's like this. A person wants somebody to hold their hand through the process. I think we do that. I think with the internet today on a buyer's side, it helps them not have to worry about that as much. Where on a listing side, listing agents have to really work hard today to sell that property. It's not like it was where 2 years ago everybody's paying above list. So I think for me, it's a lot easier for a buyer to go and find somebody else to work with, because they are on the internet shopping around, looking at all these different places and putting their information out there. Somebody's going to entice them and say, hey, I can go show you this house right now. As a listing agent, it's a little different. You got to really sell yourself, and you really got to present some type of marketing plan or some type of plan. I feel more now than they ever had. It all depends on the market. I think that buyers, they just get bombarded. They get hit from all different angles. So how are you separating yourself? Unless you get the buyer's broker agreement.
Well, I mean, do you think those people respect those buyer's broker agreements?
No.
No. Do you think agents do?
I don't, because I think if an agent gets that signed, then they don't have to put the same effort. I think it's a lose-lose for both.
Yeah. I am not going to play attorney.
Right.
But I will say this. They're beneficial to make the appearance of some kind of commitment. But at the end of the day, how are you going to enforce that? Okay, I mean, you can try, you can do this, you can do that, but really,
you take them to court. How is it going to hold up? Right?
Well, do you really want to even spend the time and the effort, right? So, do you want to ruin your name because you're going after people that just chose not to work with you? I mean, look, that whole thing is I use the buyer broker agreement, but what are you really going to do? All right. So we'll leave that alone. Well, what I will say is going back to the listings and controlling the inventory. Look, back in the day, I remember meeting some OG brokers, and one of the things that they would tell me, this is when I took real estate course the first time before I went to university, but back when I was 18, 19,
right.
20 years old, right? And what they would say is that you would control the listing, and you would more than likely get the buyer. You would control the buyer. This was way before Zillow, way before Redfin, way before the feeds and all that stuff. So that was the end game. Okay, if you were a buyer's agent, even back in the day before they changed everything, basically the only way you made commission was if you represented the seller and that whole bit.
Right.
I mean, it was a different world. But now, not to talk about commissions, I don't want to go there, but I am not going to depend on a Zillow for me to be able to feed my family with some kind of algorithm that I spend. And for full disclosure, I did it for about 6 months. I did okay with it. All right. But I felt terrible about it. And my listings went down the tubes because now I'm trying to convince all these buyers that I'm the guy to help them buy the house. And then I would get a call, hey, thanks, but we bought a new house. Hey, thanks for keep following up, but we're not interested because of this. And you find out in public records that they bought with some other agent. I mean, so I was like, why do I want to spend my efforts on buyers? Now, there is something to be said about SOI, past clients, buyers. Right. So I will go and spend my time with buyers that are worthy and of all that. But that's a process that I go through, and other agents may not have that process, and that's fine. But I think going after listings gives you a control that nothing else gives you in this business. Once you have 10 listings, 5 listings, and agents are now working for you, agents are doing everything they can to try to pick up these listings, at least in this market. I mean, to have their buyers get the listings, etc. That's where I want to concentrate most of my time. And so how do you get those listings? Well, let me give you and everybody on the how, okay? Because I mentioned it expires, right?
Okay.
All right. What other ways are there to get listings?
Well, you got expires. I think let's talk about, obviously cold calling. You can do, I don't know, you tell me. What's the best way? Okay.
I'm going to go back to the OG, original Mike Ferry, right? So I remember the day I met Mike Ferry. That day, I'll never forget it. I had made my broker at the time, no, he's still my broker, a promise, all right? Because he had been telling me, hey, you need to come over here.
Yeah.
We had lunch.
Sure.
He said, you got to meet this guy, Mike Ferry. I'm like, okay. So I made a promise, shook on it, the whole bit. Well, the night before, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I went and I got food poisoning, dude, and it sucked.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I have had it.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Next day, I am green, dude. And my wife looks at me, she goes, you're going nowhere. And I said, nope, I made a promise. So I went to the bathroom, took care of my business, okay, and it wasn't very fun. Got showered, dressed, and out. Showed up. I told the broker, I said, look, man, I said, just show me my seat, dude. I don't feel good at all. He goes, you should go home. He saw I was sweating a little bit. And I said, nope. Said I'd come, I'm here. So I sat down, and I had my head like this the whole time on my knees. I was just like this, and I was listening. But I honestly was expecting, no disrespect to Amway, love you guys, nice guys, but I was expecting something like that, some scheme, something. Right. And I'm sitting there, listen, and everything's starting to make sense of what he's saying. And there was so many things that happened that day that just kind of blew my mind. But one of the things that he says, I want everybody here, and this is paraphrasing, it won't be exact. He goes, I want everybody here that thinks they're a salesman to raise their hand. Brother, everyone rose their hand. Even my shy, sick butt rose my hand because I was shy because I didn't feel good. I'm not normally that way. So he goes, okay, I want everyone here to stand up that has made a call to their past clients in the last 30 days. Well, that wasn't me, right? So I look around, and about half the room stood up. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Goes, you guys are kind of salesmen. And then he says, I want everyone that has made a call in the last week to their past clients, not a person standing. He says, see, you guys aren't salesmen. No one here is called to follow up on your clients. And then he went on, NRA says that most agents are not remembered because there's no more touching after the initial close, and that most of those people would definitely use them if they could remember who they are. And I guess our egos are so big that we think that we're so memorable,
right,
in this case, that we don't have to do anything else, or we have already performed and they know who we are, and if they want to, they'd call us. Well, the truth is they don't remember us. They went on to live their lives, right? I mean, do you remember the guy that sold you your car?
No.
No. Do you remember his name?
Nope.
No, I don't, but I had a great experience. You think they've called me even once? I spent a lot of money, no call, and again, maybe a follow call 3 months later, but never again. So here's what happened. So he goes, everybody sit down, and so, oops, you're all sitting down. Ha, 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 and we're like, oh, guys. And then he says, all right, guys, here's what I want you to do. On your break, I want you to all promise me that you're going to call from A all the way down, as much as you can do in 15 minutes, and see if you can get an appointment. Just call and say, look, I'm sorry I haven't called you. Just calling to see if you remember I'm still in the business, blah, 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 blah. I went to the bathroom. I had to take care of more business, okay, and went back to my seat. But while I was walking back, I promised myself, I said, you know what? As soon as I feel good, I promised myself to make those calls that he said, because it made sense. So after it was all done, I said bye to the broker. I went home, slept it off, woke up the next day. I felt better. I went into my home office and I closed the door. In closing the door, I told my wife, I don't want to be bothered by nobody. I got to make a lot of calls. Bro, by 12 o'clock, I'm not going to exaggerate here. This is true. I had 4 appointments for listings. I had 3 appointments for showings. And I had 5 or 6 possibilities for loans, whether it be a refinance, cash out, or whatever. I was like, wow. So my wife comes in, and she says, how'd you do? And I told her the results. She was like, that's amazing. I go, I know. She closed the door, bro, and look, man, I don't cry. It's a rare thing, right? But I cried. I still get emotional over it because I realized that I was such a dumbass. Here I'm suffering, dude. I was 2012, 13. I was used to living this great lifestyle. I had McMansions and all this crap. And here I was with a bunch of people, past clients that I have closed over these many, 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 many years, and I never called them. So that's when I realized that the guy that was in this pity party, which was me, that guy, was wrong. And that there was another way. And it was like staring me in the face. So I started making my calls. I went to that broker. I joined the brokerage. And I went in. I started doing everything I could to learn how to do these phone calls, this expired.
Oh, you joined his brokerage?
Well, I went to Berkshire. Right, It wasn't Berkshire back then. We were called Prudential, whatever. But that's what I did. I'm not Mike Ferry's. I actually later did some coaching, and not a ton, but I did. But the point is, I got all his stuff, and I read everything his book. I went on his little app. I had the CDs and the whole bit back in the day. So, but the point of the story was that Mike, what he did for me, right, he didn't know me, right? And yeah, did he have something to gain? His coaching? Yeah, good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, gladly paid him, gladly bought whatever he had to do. Why? Because it showed me something that now that I just told you seems absolutely obvious, right? Doesn't it? And most people listening to this podcast are saying, yeah, you know what? Why not? Why haven't I called? I can tell you, I'd been in the business since 1995, dude. And I hadn't called anybody, not once, okay?
So let me say this about this. Why are more people, because I'm sure that Mike has put this out. Is this some things, though, that you had to put a regiment for yourself together? Meaning, look, I think if you're an agent out there, or just anybody in sales, I think some people may come across this, right? Maybe you just didn't. Maybe there's a lot that don't understand it. We get into this business, there's nobody that teaches you. It's kind of like raising a child. You don't really have a manual of what to do when you get into this because it's self-employment, right? You got to kind of figure things out as you go. A lot of people, when you look at real estate, I think some have figured it out, but yet still some don't do it. And I think it comes like this. Maybe they're just not cut from the cloth of being a realtor. Because if you have the recipe of success and you still don't do it, what does that say about you? Right? And I think, I'm not saying that that didn't happen with you, but is there a lot of agents out there that have this recipe or maybe have some subtleness of this recipe? It's been out for a while, I think, right? Mike's been around for a while, but they just still don't do it. Is it more about, yeah, you got to know what the process is. You got to know about making those calls, which that was your epiphany. But then if you do know it, shame on you if you're not doing something about it, right? And is there a lot of agents doing that?
Well, let's go back to that original story with that gal. You know, she's fronted me, right in front of me, right?
Right.
Gave her proof. She never did it. I'm going to give you another gal. I have this Filipino gal that worked here at the office. And, I mean, you want to talk about timid and shy. Totally timid and shy. But she had a tenacity that you wouldn't believe. She came up to me and she says, look, I want you to show me. I says, well, just listen to Mike Ferry, you know, go in this and that. Kind of trying to defer her. She goes, nope. She goes, I want you to show me. I said, all right. So I said, stand next to me. So she got her stuff, you know, she stood next to me and I said, here's the list.
So you stand up when you call?
Oh, yeah.
You don't sit down?
No. So I said, okay, so this is what you're going to say. Listen to me for a little bit and then you try. And then I'll listen to you. And then we went back and forth that way. And she stopped. She says, well, my Filipino accent is probably hurting me. I said, no, as a matter of fact, it's probably helping you. She goes, why? I said, because people are going to pay attention to what you have to say carefully because maybe they won't understand exactly where you're going, at least initially. And if you can repeat what these scripts say, then they are really going to ingrain those scripts. But anyways, what did she do? She showed up and she called and she did it. She picked up 6 listings, I think it was, in 3 months, okay? And she was so ecstatic. It was so amazing. She was so happy, right? So, like I'm telling you, I don't think it is based on your abilities that you're given at birth. I think it is what you forge once you know what to do.
Correct. Yeah,
right?
I agree.
So in this case, when I gave you the story, I went up the mountain, right? What did I do to bring in the elk?
Nothing.
Nothing. I was there at the right time, at the right moment, with the right gun, right? And I didn't even kill it. It was my buddy, but I'll take half credit, right?
Because you were prepared.
Because
right?
I was there with him,
yep.
right? And I got the meat, and you know what? The whole bit. I have the story and the experience. So
yep.
all I'm saying to you is what most people don't realize is that underneath their feet, they have an amazing amount of opportunity. And Earl Nightingale tells a wonderful story that illustrates this point. I'll give it a very brief, condensed version. There was this African farmer back in the turn of the 19th century, and he was doing okay for himself, all right? He wasn't rich, but he had a huge spread There in the south of Africa, if I got that correct. And he had a beautiful stream that ran through it. He had cattle, the whole bit. And one day while I was riding on his horse, he was riding on his stream, which was the habit to keep the horse cool and check out and survey his land and see if no predators are, going after his cattle. And he sees something that flashes, and this horse actually rears up, So he brings the horse down, gets off his horse, and he goes to look for it. And he found a stone that was beautiful. He had no idea what it was, and it was a good size stone, right? He puts it in his satchel, and he keeps going. Then, as luck would have it, a surveyor that was there, checking out all the places looking for whatever he was looking for, he knocks on his door and he introduces himself and he says, look, I'm going to all the places. I'm seeing if you guys have seen this and see that. It turns out the guy was a gemologist, I guess is what he was. And he goes, oh, come on in, refresh yourself. What would you like to drink? Then he brings some lemonade or whatever it was. And he sits down and he looks on the mantle and he almost passes out. He goes, where did you find that? Oh, he says, that's one of many. That's generously sprinkled throughout the whole of the stream. They've got a bunch of them. And he goes, sir, do you know what you have here? I can't tell you for certain, but it looks like a diamond. You mind if I take it and have it appraised for you? This is what I do. The guy goes, no, go right ahead. Didn't even care. I didn't know the guy. And the guy just took it. I mean, could you imagine that happened today?
That's crazy, man.
So he comes back a week or two later. And the guy says, look, you've found the biggest diamond that's ever been found. And can you take me to show me where you found it? Right. So he took him to the stream. The guy was like, oh, my gosh. He goes, hey, look, I could probably have a buyer for you for the land, if you're interested in selling. And they'd give you a lot over whatever the current market value is because of the what you have here. The guy goes, yeah, well, it's not a bad idea. I've always thought about traveling and possibly buying a business that can make me more money. Yeah. So they show up, sign the papers. Mm-hmm. He sold. Well, he sold it for an incredibly absorbent amount, right? I mean, just a stupid amount of money. Well, the guy left. End of the story. It turns out to be the De Beers. You ever heard of that?
No.
Mine?
Oh, no.
De Beers mine? Well,
De Beers?
I think that's how you pronounce it. But it was, and maybe still is, the largest diamond mine ever found on the continent. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah. And the diamond that he found just happened to be the Hope Diamond. I don't know if you heard of the Hope Diamond. That's the most beautiful diamond, and I think it sits in the Royal Crown.
Wow.
Okay? Yeah, it's just an amazing story. Well, back at the ranch, as they say, the guy was... he later found out, it's not a big secret, that he had sold the biggest diamond mine or whatever. And he thought he'd done a good job and he made all this money and this and that. So he spent the rest of his life, the rest of his fortune, looking for another diamond mine, right? Because he was not going to settle for anything less than a diamond mine.
Right.
Well, he ended up throwing himself over a South African ravine and died at the ocean's mouth with rocks and whatever. You can imagine that. And destitute with no more money, nothing. And that's where the story of the acres of diamonds. So underneath this guy's feet, he literally had diamonds, multis of millions and millions of dollars. But because he didn't know what a diamond was, because he didn't educate himself after he was told that he had diamonds, he didn't bother to do any kind of due diligence on his own land, right? So he sold for peanuts of what it ended up being. So all I'm telling you and everybody out there listening, okay, is that underneath your feet in your own business, if you've been doing this a long time or you're a rookie, from the people that you know, if you just reached out to those people, okay, whether they're past clients or just friends, then what you could do is you could start the base of what will later become your own diamond mine, right, your own business. But most people are skeptics.
Yeah.
They will and they don't want to put in the effort, right? Unless they know what the return really is. So in this case, why am I going to dial all my 200 contacts when I don't know after the end of, 10 hours, that I'm going to end up with business? And why do I want to bother them and let them know that I'm in the business of selling real estate when maybe I'll insult or offend them? And after all, these are my friends and my contacts. Why am I going to do that?
Right.
And they end up not doing that. And then you see rookies that come in and go. But the rookies, the first thing they're told is, go into your contacts and call those people. It's a standard operation here in our industry. But I would venture to guess most of them don't do that. What they do is they get on social media, okay, and they put in posts that, hey, look, here's my real estate license, and maybe some other comments, and maybe they'll do even a little bit more than that. And then they're done. They think that that's how to get the business. And the truth is, that isn't how to get the business. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a guy that's doing a farm, gal, right? And they are spending $1,000 a month on mailers and all that, right? And they're getting themselves some traction in the community. They're doing open houses and all that. Well, when do you think someone out of that is going, when they call them, when do you think that person is actually going to turn around and return that call?
I don't know, a couple days later?
Well, that's the problem. No, it should be immediately, right? So if I have a farm, right, and I'm generating flyers for that farm, right, and I'm doing things for that farm, and I'm not calling these people back because I have this allergy for calling people, right? I figure they're going to call me, and when they truly are even calling them, some of these people are not even calling them back immediately. They're waiting some time. Well, if Zillow, and when I went through the Zillow training is true or not, they told me that you should call right when you get the notification. You should call within the next couple minutes. I don't remember if it was 5 minutes or 7 minutes. And if you don't, your probability of getting an appointment went from 40 to 50% if you would have called to less than 1 to 2% or something like that. You can look up the stats yourself. It's not something that's not public. It's totally public.
Right.
So even the people that are buying the business, right, are still adverse on making a contact with that person. And so it isn't a matter of people not having the wiring, like you're mentioning, to be able to do it. It's that people just don't want to go to the unknown. They don't want to make the phone call.
That's very interesting. I'm going to say, most people don't leave, like when they're, and it's kind of the concept, like I think about this is, like most people don't travel outside or live outside of where they actually grew up, or the region of where they grew up. They don't want to leave the state. They don't want to leave the city that they grew up in. People just like familiarity, and I think that's the problem is you got to take that leap of faith or step out of that comfort zone, have conflict potentially, or be told no. And I think a lot of people don't like to be told that. They're scared of it.
I think you're right. I mean, from my experience of helping and training several people at no charge. I've never charged anybody.
Right.
That's changing now, by the way. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, that's been my biggest struggle, is to convince someone that they need to reach out, and even to their own sphere of influence, they are adverse of calling them. We all fall guilty of that, and it's basically the unknown, going back. And us as agents, the only time that we really get raving fans is when that raving fan realizes that we have the best intentions for them, but also they know who we are. They know us, right? That's my boy over there, Pedro. You got to go with him. This guy, he knows what he's doing. You've got to go with this guy. And the only way you're going to maintain the raving fans is if you touch your raving fans at least over a period of a year by a phone call 4 times. And then other things. I mean, there's 1,000 things you can do now. You can drip on them and all these fancy things. But at the end, the one that really, really matters is the phone call that you had. So allow me an example of what I did, if you would. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So here I am the next day. I was sicker than a junkyard dog, right?
Okay.
And I made a promise, and I'm sitting there calling. And Mike Ferry says, just apologize and move forward and tell them you're an agent, right? So I called them up and I apologized. I said, look, I am so sorry for not calling you. We did business about 3 years ago. You have your house. I mean, do you still have that house, sir? Ma'am? They would say, yeah, you know what? We still have the house. I said, well, listen, is there any questions that I can answer for you that you may have had or may have now about what's going on in the market? Do you want to know what your house is worth? Is there something I can do so to make up for not reaching out to you? And then normally what would happen? No, Pedro, you stop. You know, you did a great job for us. And no, you don't have to apologize. You know, no problem. We have no questions. Thanks for calling. And then I say, do you mind if I mail you a little note and a card? You know, would that be all right? Yeah, Pedro, yeah, send it. By the way, I don't even have your card anymore. Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Okay, great. So I'll do that. Now, today, you could probably say, hey, do you mind if I text you my information right now, then send them a card? You always want to get it. People get excited about getting mail, you know. Well, at least it's not a bill collector anyway, right? So, but at the end, that's what I did. That produced, I don't know, probably like $30,000 to $40,000, you know, over those calls that I made back then over a period of like 5 or 6 months of talking to my past clients and closed commissions, net closed commissions. That's not a ton of money, but that was money I wouldn't have made had I not reached out to them. Right. The listings that I got and all that. So that's what I did. What say you?
So you're talking about what I would do?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's like this. I think that the calls are important. I think where I get challenged at is, let's say you don't have real rapport. Let's say you built leads that you didn't close, right? Let's say let's say you're doing marketing, you're spending money. Most agents do, right? Lenders, everybody. Let's say that you have these leads that come through and they don't know you. What's the best way to get on top of those leads as far as introducing yourself and then presenting yourself in a light that, I'll give you an example. You call somebody, they go, hey, who's this? Oh, my name's Dan. You were looking at my website 8 months ago. Decided, I made a mistake. I should have called you more and I should have put you at a high priority. Is there anything I can do for you? No. How about I text you my information? Great. If you can help me with this, any friends or family, please go ahead and refer my name. You have my information. Okay. The address thing and sending a card, very, very intriguing. But the odds of getting that person on a call like that has no rapport with you like that, is that a waste of a call?
No. One of the things I teach in coaching is I celebrate those. I celebrate failure. I celebrate it because I do more failing than most people. I fail. I'm a master failure. I think I have a doctorate in failure, brother. And that's been the story. Yeah. That unless you're calling and failing, then you won't win. You mentioned Outlier earlier. Have you ever read that book?
Yep.
All right. Well, in the book, he talks about 10,000 hours, right? And that you're going to be an expert at anything you want if you've dedicated about 10,000 hours. That's the moral of it, really. Right. So if you're calling, are you going to get 10,000 hours by winning everybody?
No.
So you're calling, you're going to get more hours of failed calls than you're going to get of successful calls. But I will give you a little bit there. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're calling, and what script would I use when I'm calling those people I haven't called? Okay, so first, I wouldn't have called an 8-month-old still-ass lead. It ain't happening, all right? So what I'm going to do is, if I'm calling like Zillow leads, Google Click leads, any of those leads, right? Then what I'm doing is I'm gonna call them within a certain parameter, right? And so I get a lead, I'm calling within the first 5 to 20 minutes, right? If it turns out that it's a next day lead call, then I'll call first thing in the morning. And then I'll follow Mike Ferry's advice, all right? What is Mike Ferry's advice? It is a circular, he calls it the circular filing cabinet. He's dating himself because we don't have a lot of filing cabinets anymore anyway. Right. So he was talking about a circular trash can, right? So what he would do is he'd get these leads, right? And if they didn't want to buy or sell within 30 days, he didn't say 60, he didn't say 90, he said 30. He says, throw them into your circular filing cabinet. And I had a hard time reconciling
It's a CRM.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what? He says, don't put them in anything. Throw them away. Forget them. You'll never talk to them. You'll never contact them. It'll just be a waste of your time. Okay. Now, for those of you listening, that's not what I teach. Okay? And maybe that's not what Mike teaches now. It's been a minute since I've followed Mike on a really regular basis. I did put in my time, my dues with Mike. He's a great guy. But he may be teaching now to put him in a CRM.
Sure.
Who knows? Yeah. But I do put him in a CRM. But
Right.
the only people that are going in a CRM are people that either A, have closed, right, already, right? And I got a drip on them for life. Or people that have promised in some way or given me their why that they want to do something up to a certain amount of time. Let's call it 90 days to make it simple. I'm not going to clog up a CRM with a bunch of leads that are going to go nowhere, okay? So what I would do in your case is this simple. I would call and I would say something like this. If that's what I want to do, a call old leads, right? I'd say this. I'd say, hey, you know what? I see that you were on my website, period. I wouldn't say it's 8 months ago. I'd say, I see you were on my website looking for houses. Let me ask you a question. Did you already buy? Yeah, I did. Okay, great. Well, that's how I was calling. Do you have any questions about your house that you got to, anything? No. Okay, thanks. Obviously, I would add in there somewhere, hey, I'm a real estate agent. I'm calling, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But in essence, the main thing I want to know, did they buy? If they say no, right, which is going to be about 50% of the time, right?
Yeah.
They may just hang up. Most of the other 50%, right? They might even not want to deal with you. But if they answer and if they pick up their phone, whatever, then they would say something like, no, I haven't. Okay, great. When are you thinking about buying your home? Well, I can't because the lender said blah, 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 blah. Could I refer you to a miracle guy, a miracle lender that might be able to help you and give you some advice so you can close? Well, no, you know what? We've already leased another property. We're done. The guy that I saw, he was a good dude. And yeah, man, I got to clean up some stuff. And da-da-da-da. Okay, great. That guy is gone. No follow-up, no CRM, nothing. I'm done, right? But I do tell them, hey, listen, would you like me to send you a text with my information when your lease comes up? Would you like to give me a call? Sure. They all say sure. So I will spend the effort to send them a text. I have it on tap. Boom, they get my card. I'm done. But for the most part, anything that is not, well, I haven't bought right now, but sir, I will probably be buying in the next 30 to 60 days. I've seen 3 or 4 properties, but this other agent hasn't gotten back to me. Can I give you some addresses and you can tell me if they're available? Mm-hmm. Yes, sir, I can. That guy, now I drip on him. Now I talk to him. Now I have him on a 3x5 card and I'm calling their butt with an excuse every day until I got him in a contract, maybe even twice a day. That guy, I will follow up. Now, that's a buyer But as soon as I tied them up, that's what I would give to my team, right? To go show them the properties and do that. I would not probably spend much time with them because what am I looking for?
You're looking for the result, which is...
I'm looking for listings.
Listings?
Yeah. Buyer leads, like you're saying, I probably wouldn't even show them unless I had to. And I'll give you an example. One gal that I learned from, she was amazing. She was she did higher ends, So one day we're having, some food here at the office. We're just sitting down talking, She's eating her stuff, I mean mine. And she says, she goes, man, I really like what you're doing with your listings. You're getting a lot of listings, da, da, da. And I said, well, you know what I'm doing, but I don't know what you're doing. So how is it you're only getting these $1 million freaking listings? I mean, she's taking $5 million listings, $10 million. I mean, she's not doing a ton of units, but boy, she's rolling in the numbers like 30 million, 50 million, 60 million. So I'm like, how are you doing that? She's like, well, I don't do anything but that. And I go, what? Yeah, I'm not like you. I won't take a $100,000 condo. I ain't having it. I'm like, whoa, well, can you give me those $100,000 condos? Back in the day, we laughed. But she says, no, if you're not at least $800,000 to $1 million, depending, I won't show you property. I'll refer you, and I'll make a referral fee, but I will not. And she didn't have a team. She was just her, a couple of assistants. And I was like, wow. She says, yeah, I won't take a listing unless it's at least $800,000 or $500,000, whatever her number was at the time. I won't do it. I won't waste my time. I will refer it out, but I won't do it. I'm like, wow. I learned a lot from her. So before, back in the day, what I would say is, unless it's a listing, but now as a buyer, I may take a really qualified buyer, a really good buyer, if they're at about $800,000 and higher.
Right.
So I would do that, and that would have to be like a situation where I'd already made my calls. It'd be after, let's say 4 o'clock or in weekends when I don't work normally. Yeah, I would probably do that. But other than that, brother, I am not messing with that, because my main thing is I want to stay in business. And the only way to really stay in business is to get on that phone, whether you're calling in, whether the leads are Zillow and you're getting it through whatever source you're getting it from. You still have to call them back in a very, very short amount of time. And then as you go down the road and you build up your pipe, you can get a little bit more particular on what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. What say you?
Well, I think it's kind of opened up me a little bit as far as understanding what's a solid referral possible partner versus non, and where are you putting your time. And I think that's something we can discuss even more. But I think I've learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
There's a lot to take from this. It really is.
There is. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming to Master Agent Mindset. And we appreciate you staying tuned. We thank Dan French for showing up on this wonderful day and talking about Master Mindset. Thank you very much.